The rain had been falling for hours on the dusty frontier world of Viron 9. Lightning flashed across the wide desert, showing a small, broken house made of scrap metal and solar panels. Inside, Ethan Cole, a quiet human mechanic, worked late beside his oil-stained workbench. The storm rattled the windows, but Ethan was used to storms. What he wasn't used to was silence. His son, Jamie, had fallen asleep early. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag and looked at the boy. Jamie was 12, bright-eyed and clever, but his legs hadn't worked since birth. His wheelchair was an old model that Ethan had rebuilt again and again, just to keep it rolling. The boy always smiled and told his father not to worry. Still, Ethan worried every night. Suddenly, through the roar of thunder, came a strange metallic crash outside. It didn't sound like thunder. It sounded heavier, like a ship. Ethan froze, tool still in his hand. Then another noise followed, a soft electronic beep like a docking seal. He stepped out into the rain, shielding his face from the cold water. The wind whipped around him, and in the distance, through the darkness, he saw it. A small cargo pod, glowing faint blue, half buried in the mud. Its thrusters were still warm, steam rising from them. "What in the stars?" he whispered, walking closer. There were no landing pads here. No one ever came to this part of Viron 9. The pod's hatch blinked with a red light, and a screen displayed, "Delivery confirmation required." Ethan frowned. The address on the screen read, House 47B, Velen Ridge. He lived in 47A. The wrong house. Before he could think, the hatch hissed and opened halfway. A puff of cold mist escaped. Inside was a transparent cryo capsule, and through the frost he saw movement. A shape, a person. He hurried forward, brushing away the frost. What he saw made his heart stop. It was a woman, tall, slim, and alien. Her skin shimmered faintly like silver silk, her hair a cascade of pale light. Wires and seals were attached to her arms, and her chest rose slowly with shallow breaths. She was alive. Ethan stepped back, confused. "What are you doing here? Who sent you?" The screen beside the pod flashed a single word. "Bride." He blinked. "A bride? You've got to be kidding me." Jamie's voice came from the doorway. "Dad, what's that noise?" Ethan turned. "Go back inside, Jamie." But Jamie wheeled himself out anyway, eyes wide at the sight. "Dad, she's beautiful." "Is she a robot?" "No," Ethan said quietly, kneeling beside the pod. "She's real. And she's not supposed to be here." The storm thundered above them again. The pod beeped in warning, a timer counting down. Auto return in 60 seconds. Ethan didn't know what that meant, but instinct screamed danger. Without another thought, he grabbed his wrench and smashed the locking mechanism. Sparks flew. The capsule hissed, then the seal released with a long exhale of mist. The alien woman's eyes snapped open, bright silver with hints of violet. She gasped, sitting up, her gaze darting wildly around. She spoke a language Ethan didn't understand, her voice trembling. When she saw him, she flinched back, pressing herself against the pod wall. "It's okay." Ethan raised his hand slowly. "You're safe. I won't hurt you." The woman shook her head, her breathing fast. Then in broken English she whispered, No, send back." Ethan blinked. "You speak English?" She nodded weakly. "They ship me to Warlord, not bride, prisoner." Jamie's eyes widened. "Dad, we have to help her." Ethan hesitated. If he kept her here, the system might call the authorities. Hiding an alien from official transport meant prison or worse. But as lightning lit her frightened face, he knew he couldn't just close the hatch and pretend nothing happened. He helped her out of the pod. Her legs shook and she nearly fell. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin was cold, almost metallic, but soft. "Inside," he said, quickly. Together they hurried back to the small house. Rain dripped from their clothes as he guided her to sit by the fire heater. Jamie fetched a blanket, wrapping it around her shoulders. She looked around the modest home, eyes softening when she saw the boy. "You help?" she asked quietly. Ethan nodded. "Yes, my name's Ethan. This is my son, Jamie." She hesitated, then placed her hand on her chest. "Liara of Threx," Jamie smiled. "Hi, Liara." Outside, the cargo pod suddenly lifted on its own thrusters, flying back into the stormy night. The screen flickered one last time before vanishing into the clouds. Ethan stared through the window, heart pounding. Somewhere out there, someone would soon notice their bride never arrived. Liara turned to him, fear flickering in her eyes. "They come," For me, Ethan met her gaze. He didn't know who they were, but he knew this much: if they were cruel enough to ship a woman like cargo, they wouldn't stop now. The storm outside grew louder, and in that moment, Ethan Cole realized something. His quiet life on Viren 9 had just ended, and the wrong delivery had just changed everything. The storm passed, leaving the small house in silence. Drops of rain slid down the windows as dawn crept over the horizon. The desert outside looked washed clean, but Ethan's heart was not calm. Inside, the alien woman named Liara sat by the heater, wrapped in a blanket. She stared at the flames like someone who had never seen fire before. Ethan stood near the table, arms crossed, deep in thought. He had checked his radio an hour ago. There were already alerts from the Port Authority. A missing shipment, a misplaced diplomatic consignment. They were looking for her. Jamie rolled his wheelchair closer to Liara, curiosity shining in his young eyes. "Do you come from far away?" he asked softly. Liara looked at him for a long time, then nodded. "Very far, across 3 suns." The boy's mouth dropped open. 3 suns? That's so cool. Ethan couldn't help but smile, though worry shadowed his face. "Jamie, give her some space. She's been through enough." Liara shook her head. "It's fine, kind." Her English was broken, but her voice had a calm rhythm. When she smiled faintly, it made the small room feel warmer. Still, Ethan couldn't ignore the facts. She was an alien woman who didn't belong here, and the people looking for her were likely dangerous. He knelt beside her, trying to sound gentle. "Liara, I need to know the truth. Who are you, really?" She hesitated. Then she whispered, "I was sold, told I marry, important human." "Not true, they send a warlord, Cruel," Jamie gasped. "That's awful." Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd seen enough of the galaxy's cruelty to know when someone was telling the truth. The look in her eyes, fear mixed with shame, was something no one could fake. "Why you?" he asked quietly. Liara touched the small crystal hanging around her neck. "I have data secret about ships, about trade. They find out I die." Ethan stared at her. "You mean you have proof of something?" She nodded. "Bad men, many worlds, they sell people." The mechanic looked toward the window, his mind racing. Hiding her would be dangerous, but turning her in would mean death, for her, maybe for Jamie too. The port scanners could find any life signal within hours. Jamie broke the silence. "Dad, we can't let them take her." Ethan rubbed his temples. "Jamie, we don't even know who they are." "She's scared," the boy said firmly. "You always tell me we help people when no one else will." Those words hit Ethan hard. It was something he used to tell Jamie when fixing broken machines for neighbors who couldn't pay. But this time it wasn't a broken machine, it was a living being hunted by killers. He sighed and stood up. "Fine, she can stay. Just for now." Liara's eyes widened, full of relief. "Thank you." "Ethan," he nodded once. "But you'll have to stay hidden. No lights at night, no sound near the windows. If patrol drones come, we shut everything down. Understand?" She nodded quickly. That evening, Ethan went to the shed behind the house. He worked on an old generator, making sure it could power the heat without connecting to the city grid. Any signal could expose them. His hands moved fast, steady, while his thoughts twisted with fear. Jamie came to check on him later, holding a tray of warm food for Liara. "She said thank you again," he said. "She's learning our words faster now." Ethan smiled faintly. "You like her, don't you?" "She's nice," the boy said. "She doesn't look at me like I'm broken." Ethan froze. Jamie's voice was quiet but honest. "It hurt to hear it," she said. The boy continued. "Your eyes are brave. Nobody ever said that to me." Ethan turned away so Jamie wouldn't see the emotion in his eyes. "Go feed her, son." When night fell, the stars spread across the dark sky, bright and endless. Liara sat quietly by the window looking up. She whispered something in her language, a soft prayer or a memory. Then Ethan saw the flicker of light far away over the hills. His stomach turned cold. "Patrol drones." He shut off the house lights instantly. The room dropped into darkness. Liara gasped softly. "Stay quiet," Ethan whispered. "They're scanning for heat signatures." Jamie held his breath. The low hum of the drones passed overhead. Red beams swept across the sand but didn't stop. After a tense minute, the sound faded away. Ethan exhaled slowly. Jamie whispered, "Did they find us?" "Not yet," Ethan said. But they will if we don't stay smart. Liara looked at him, trembling. You risk your life, why? Ethan hesitated, then said simply, because someone should. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them. A quiet bond built not by words but by shared danger, and the small kindness of a human who refused to look away. Outside, far in the distance, a red signal blinked in the night. The hunters had found the wrong address, but they were closing in. Morning light spread over the dusty hills of Viron 9. Ethan hadn't slept. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at his compad that kept flashing red alerts. Missing shipment, priority search. Each new message made his stomach twist tighter. Liara was quiet. She stood near the window, her silver skin glowing softly under the weak sunlight. She looked peaceful, but Ethan could see fear hiding behind her calm face. Jamie, cheerful as always, was showing her his small collection of broken toys and metal scraps. This one used to fly, Jamie said, holding up a tiny drone. Dad said I could fix it myself someday. Liara smiled faintly. You clever, she said, her accent soft but improving. You make things live again, Jamie grinned. Just like Dad. Ethan tried to smile too, but his thoughts were dark. Hiding her was a crime. Keeping her here was dangerous. But something about her eyes, sad and honest, kept him from making the call. When Jamie went outside to feed their old robo-mule, Liara turned to Ethan. You want truth, she said quietly. I tell now. Ethan looked up. Go on. She hesitated, then opened the small crystal pendant around her neck. Inside it, a faint blue light pulsed like a heartbeat. She placed it on the table. This, she whispered, hold memory. Many names. Many faces. Humans and others sold as property. Ethan frowned. Slaves? She nodded. Yes, my world trade routes. Hidden by men who call it marriage deals. I see, I copy data. They find out. They make me cargo. Ethan leaned forward, his voice low. You stole their records? Her eyes glimmered with pain. I only want truth out. But they strong. Kill anyone who speak. He sat back, stunned. The Galactic trade rings had been rumored for years, but no one ever found proof. And now a frightened woman from another world was sitting in his kitchen holding the key. Jamie rolled in again, holding a piece of metal. Dad, the drone's power cell's dead. Can we fix? He stopped mid-sentence. Through the window, 3 black shapes moved across the distant ridge. Silent, smooth. Patrol drones. Ethan's heart jumped. Get inside now! Jamie obeyed instantly. Ethan pulled the blinds down, shut off every light, and grabbed his scanner. The screen showed a faint pulse, searchers moving closer. Liara's face turned pale. They come. Ethan's voice was steady but low. Basement now. He led them into the back room behind a shelf. A narrow door opened to a maintenance shaft he'd dug years ago to hide spare fuel tanks. It was cramped and dark, but safe from scanners. They huddled inside. The air smelled of oil and dust. Jamie clutched his father's sleeve. Dad, are they going to take her? Not if I can help it, Ethan said. Above them, the low hum of engines passed. Through the thin wall, they heard footsteps, metal boots crunching sand. Voices in another language barked commands. A light beam swept across the windows. Liara trembled. If they catch, they kill you too, Ethan whispered. Then we don't get caught. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the sound faded. The ships moved on. Silence returned. When they climbed back up, the sun was setting. Smoke rose from a nearby hill. Someone else's house had been searched, maybe burned. The message was clear. They were getting closer. Ethan walked to the window, jaw tight. They're not stopping until they find you. Liara looked down. I can go. I run away. Save you. Jamie spoke before his father could. No, you can't walk far. They'll find you. Ethan turned to her. He's right. If you leave, you die. And if I give you up, I'll regret it forever. Liara's eyes filled with tears that shimmered like glass. Why help me? He took a slow breath. Because my son believes people deserve second chances. And I still want to believe that too. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Ethan picked up the pendant she'd shown him. If what's in here is real, we can't just hide. We need to expose it, Liara shook her head. You don't understand. These men, they control fleets, armies, they own the news. Then we find someone they don't own, Ethan said. Jamie's small voice piped up. Like who? Ethan didn't answer. His mind was already working. old instincts from his days as a systems engineer waking again. He knew someone who might still owe him a favor, an old war pilot turned smuggler on the edge of the neutral zones. He looked at Liara. "You said you wanted to tell the truth? Then we're going to help you do it." Liara looked at him in disbelief. "You risk all." Ethan gave a tired smile. "You weren't the only one sent to the wrong place, Liara. Maybe the galaxy made a mistake for a reason." Outside, the night wind howled over the sand. In the sky above, 2 small drones circled once, then turned back toward the horizon, unaware that the real secret they sought was hiding in the smallest house on the ridge. Night fell over the valley like a heavy blanket. The desert winds howled softly, carrying the scent of dust and danger. Ethan stood outside his workshop, staring at the horizon. In the far distance, faint red lights blinked across the dark sky. Ships. Too many for patrols. He clenched his fists. "They've found us." Inside the small house, Liara helped Jamie close the metal shutters. Her silver fingers moved quickly, sealing each latch. The boy looked up at her nervously. "Dad says we'll be okay," he whispered. Liara forced a small smile. "Your father and brave. But we must be careful." She could feel it. The air was different now, heavier, tense. Her people called it the scent of the hunt. Somewhere beyond the dunes, mercenaries were landing, men who would burn a village just to erase one witness. Ethan returned inside, carrying 2 old rifles, a backpack of tools, and a small data pad. His face was hard, his eyes sharper than they'd ever been. "We don't have much time," he said. "They'll sweep the ridge by morning," Jamie frowned. "Can't we just hide again?" "Not this time," Ethan replied. "They'll search every hole. We'll have to move, but first we make sure they don't follow." He laid out maps and old power cells on the table. Years ago, before settling down, he'd built traps for mining operations. Simple, reliable, and dangerous. Now those old skills might save them. Liara watched as he worked, amazed at how calm he seemed. "You fight before," she said softly. Ethan nodded once. "Long time ago. Not proud of it. But I remember enough." She touched his arm gently. "You help me. You risk your son. Why?" He paused for a long moment, then looked her in the eyes. "Because Jamie deserves to see what doing the right thing looks like." Outside, the first sound of engines echoed through the night. Dust rose from the distant hills. The mercenaries had landed. Ethan moved fast. He placed small traps along the path near the canyon, pressure mines built from broken mining tools and plasma cells. Jamie helped from the doorway, guiding the drones that Ethan had rewired. The boy's hands shook, but his mind was focused. "Drone 3 ready," Jamie called out. Ethan smiled faintly. "Good work, kiddo." Liara stood guard at the ridge, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon. Her people had better night vision, and she could already see movement. Dark figures spreading out like shadows. "They hear," she said quietly. Ethan turned off all lights. The valley went dark. Only the stars above gave a dim silver glow. He crouched beside the window, his rifle steady. Then the first explosion hit. One of the mercenaries had triggered a mine. Fire lit up the canyon for a brief second. Shouts followed in alien tongues. "They'll be angry now," Ethan muttered. Jamie swallowed hard. "Dad, I know, son. Stay calm." Liara moved closer, whispering, "You cannot fight them all." "Not planning to," he said. "Just need to slow them down long enough for you two to escape." But Liara shook her head. "No, I stay. I protect too." Before Ethan could argue, the window shattered. A drone burst through, firing a stun beam. Ethan dove behind the table, returning fire with a loud blast that shook the walls. The drone exploded, sparks raining over the floor. "Basement, now!" Ethan shouted. Jamie wheeled toward the hidden tunnel, Liara following. Ethan covered them, firing short bursts at the incoming shadows outside. The air smelled of burning sand and metal. As Jamie disappeared down the tunnel, Liara turned back. "Ethan, come!" He hesitated, tossing one last grenade out the window. The explosion sent dust flying everywhere. Then he grabbed the pendant from the table, the one holding the data, and ran after them. They crawled through the dark tunnel, their breathing loud in the narrow space. Behind them, the sound of footsteps echoed above. "They know," Liara whispered. Ethan gritted his teeth. "Let them. They'll find an empty house soon." The tunnel opened into a hidden cave at the base of the ridge. There, a small rusted shuttle sat half buried in sand. Ethan brushed off the dust and powered up the console. "She still runs," he muttered. Jamie smiled faintly. You kept it all these years? Ethan nodded. Never know when you'll need an escape. Liara sat beside the console, watching the sky through a small crack. They burn everything, she whispered as red flames glowed in the distance. They destroy home. Ethan looked at her, his face softening. It's not much of a home if we can't protect it. Jamie touched Liara's hand. We'll make a new one, together. Liara smiled weakly, though tears shimmered in her eyes. For the first time in her life, someone wasn't running from her, they were running with her. Outside, the flames rose higher. The hunt had begun. But deep beneath the sand, 3 souls waited in the dark. 1 human father, 1 brave boy, and 1 alien bride who carried a secret strong enough to shake empires. The cave was cold, damp, and silent except for the soft hum of the old shuttle. Weak light from a lantern flickered against the rough stone walls, painting shadows that danced like ghosts. Ethan sat near the console, his face pale from exhaustion. The last 2 days had taken everything from him. His home, his peace, his safety. Liara moved quietly behind him, her silver eyes glowing softly in the dark. Jamie slept on a blanket, his small chest rising and falling in slow rhythm. The boy had been brave, but the escape had drained him completely. His wheelchair lay beside him, dented and half-broken. Ethan rubbed his tired eyes. We can't stay here long, he murmured. If they scan for energy, they'll find the shuttle. Liara stepped closer, kneeling beside him. He need rest, she said softly, pointing at Jamie. You too. He shook his head. No time for rest. But when he looked at her, really looked, he saw something in her eyes that made him pause. It wasn't fear anymore. It was care. Gentle, quiet care that reached through the cold cave and touched something he'd buried long ago. Liara glanced toward Jamie, then took out a small vial of glowing blue liquid from her belt. I can help him, she said. His legs. Maybe not walk soon, but better. Ethan frowned. What is that? Biogel, she replied. Healing compound. From my world. It rebuild tissue, nerve. Ethan's heart jumped. You're serious? She nodded. Let me try. He hesitated for only a moment before nodding. Do it. Liara moved carefully beside Jamie and rolled up his pant legs. Faint scars lined the boy's skin, old marks from surgeries that never worked. Liara's hands glowed faintly as she spread the gel along his calves and knees. Jamie stirred but didn't wake. Ethan watched, hardly breathing. The glow sank into the skin like living light, disappearing beneath the surface. Liara whispered softly in her language, each word a gentle hum that echoed through the cave. Minutes passed. Then Jamie moved, his toes twitched slightly. Ethan's eyes widened. He moved, he whispered. Liara smiled faintly. Slow, but working. Ethan felt something tighten in his throat. For years, doctors had said it was impossible. And yet here, in the middle of nowhere, an alien woman had done what no human medicine ever could. When she finished, she leaned back, tired but peaceful. He sleep now, his body heal while dream. Ethan looked at her, gratitude shining in his eyes. You didn't have to do that. She gave a small shrug. He kind, he give me food. Call me friend. On my world, kindness is rare. Ethan smiled softly. You're part of this family now, whether you like it or not. Liara blinked, surprised. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she whispered, family. As if the word itself was strange to her. Silence settled again, broken only by the faint hum of the shuttle. Outside wind howled through the canyon, carrying the distant echo of engines, mercenaries still searching. Ethan stood and checked the radar. They're close, maybe a few miles north. Liara stepped beside him. We can go deeper? He shook his head. The tunnels end here, but I've got one more trick. He opened a small compartment in the wall and pulled out a camo field emitter. Old military tech, nearly dead. This will mask our heat signature. Won't last forever, but it'll buy us a night. He activated it. The light in the cave dimmed, and a faint ripple shimmered over the walls, blending their presence with the rock. Liara watched in awe. You fight like soldier, fix like engineer. Ethan gave a faint smile. I was both once, she tilted her head. Why leave? He looked down at Jamie, asleep under the blanket. Because the war took everything that mattered. He's all I've got left, Liara's gaze softened. You fight for love, she said quietly. That is strongest reason. He looked at her and nodded slowly. Maybe the only one that matters. Outside, thunder rolled across the distant sky. The storm had returned, but inside the cave something had changed. The fear had not vanished, but it had been replaced by something stronger, a bond forged by trust, sacrifice, and the fragile hope of survival. Liara sat close to the heater, wrapping her arms around herself. "Your world. Cold," she murmured. Ethan chuckled tiredly. "You get used to it." She looked at him, eyes gentle. "Maybe I will." And as the storm raged beyond the stone walls, 3 lives, once strangers, sat together in the dark, bound not by chance anymore, but by choice. The night was too quiet, the kind of quiet that came before danger. Inside the cave, the air was thick with tension. The small generator hummed faintly, casting blue light across the walls. Ethan checked his pulse rifle one last time, his hand steady, his mind made up. Liara sat by the sleeping boy, her silver hair glowing softly in the dark. Jamie's breathing had grown stronger since her treatment. Every small twitch in his legs gave her hope and fear. Because she knew what was coming, Ethan looked at her. "They've tracked us. Maybe an hour out." Liara's eyes glimmered. "Then we run?" He shook his head. "No, we fight," she frowned. "You fight 10 men, maybe more. You die." Ethan gave a small smile. "I've been dying since the war. At least this time it means something." Liara stood, anger flashing in her voice. "You think death is meaning?" "No, live is meaning." Ethan stared at her. This woman who was once a prisoner, now standing tall like a warrior queen. He almost laughed at the irony. "Then help me live through this." Her expression softened. "Always." He handed her a small blaster and checked the power cell. "You ever used one?" She tilted her head. "Not like this. But I learned fast." Outside, faint lights moved across the desert, cold, red, and silent. The mercenaries were spreading out in formation, scanners sweeping every rock. They had found the valley. Ethan moved toward the cave entrance and crouched behind a pile of stones. His traps were ready, repurposed drone charges buried in the sand. One step too close and they'd light up the sky. Liara followed, silent as shadow. Her heart pounded not from fear but from something deeper. She had been hunted her whole life, treated as a tool. But tonight she chose to stand. The first explosion shook the cave entrance. A flash of fire split the night as 3 mercenaries were thrown backward, their armor glowing red-hot. The others fired blindly into the darkness. Ethan pulled the trigger of his rifle. The first shot hit clean. The second one missed, but it forced the attackers back. The cave echoed with thunder. Jamie woke to the noise. "Dad!" he shouted weakly. Liara turned. "Stay inside, no move." But the boy refused to stay silent. He pushed himself up, his legs trembling but moving, barely, shakily but moving. He crawled to the control panel of the shuttle and started powering it up. "If Dad's fighting, I'm helping." Outside, Ethan reloaded quickly, ducking behind cover as plasma blasts scorched the stone above him. He could smell burnt sand and smoke. One mercenary charged forward. Ethan shot him square in the chest, sparks flying. But then the leader appeared, a tall alien in black armor, voice deep and cold. "Human mechanic," he growled through his helmet. "You have what belongs to us." Ethan spat into the sand. "She doesn't belong to anyone." The mercenary raised his blaster. "Then you die with her." Before he could fire, a streak of blue light flashed beside Ethan. Liara stepped out from the shadows, her hands glowing bright. The air around her shimmered like heat waves. The mercenary froze. What? Liara's eyes blazed silver white. "You call me property," she said softly, her voice echoing through the canyon. "Then watch what your property can do." She raised her hands, and pure energy burst from her palms, an ancient Threxian force once used to heal, now burning with rage. The blast tore through the mercenaries' formation, disabling weapons and knocking ships out of the air. The sky turned blue-white for a heartbeat. Ethan stared, speechless. Liara fell to her knees, breathing hard, light still flickering around her skin. "It is done," she whispered. The surviving mercenaries fled into the darkness, terrified. The leader tried to crawl away, but Ethan grabbed his collar. "Tell your masters," he said coldly. "The galaxy isn't theirs to own." Then he let him go. The man stumbled, terrified, and ran. Silence returned. The only sound was the crackle of burning sand. Ethan turned to Liara. She looked pale but alive. He knelt beside her. "You're hurt," She smiled faintly. Only tired. Your world heavy? Jamie appeared behind them, standing on shaky legs, his hands gripping the wall for balance. Dad, I did it. I stood up. Ethan froze, eyes wide. Jamie! Liara's smile grew. Told you. He heal. Ethan pulled his son into his arms, his heart overflowing with emotion. For the first time in years, tears fell down his face. Not from pain, but from relief. The fire outside slowly died, leaving the stars shining bright above them. They had survived. But more than that, they had changed. Morning came quietly to Vero 9. The battle-scorched valley was still. The wind carried the smell of burnt metal and rain-soaked dust. For the first time in many nights, the sky above the desert was clear, washed clean, golden light spilling over the horizon like a promise of peace. Ethan stood outside the cave, his rifle slung across his shoulder. His arms ached, his clothes were torn, and his eyes were tired. But for the first time in years, he allowed himself to breathe without fear. Behind him, the faint sound of laughter echoed through the tunnel. Liara was showing Jamie how to walk. The boy's steps were unsteady, small, trembling. But they were real. His legs, once still and weak, now held him upright. Liara stood beside him, her hands steady on his shoulders, her voice gentle. One more step slowly, you strong. Jamie laughed, his eyes bright. I'm walking. Dad, I'm walking. Ethan turned, and for a moment he couldn't speak. His throat tightened and his eyes filled with tears he didn't try to hide. You sure are, kiddo, he said softly. Liara smiled, her silver eyes reflecting the morning light. He heal faster now, his heart strong. Ethan looked at her, the woman who had fallen into his life like a mistake from the stars and turned it into something greater. You did this, he said quietly. She shook her head. We did this. They walked together to the entrance of the cave. The storm had passed and the valley below shimmered under sunlight. The mercenaries were gone, scattered after their defeat. But the cost was high, their home destroyed, their lives changed forever. Ethan stared at the empty horizon. They'll come back, he said. People like that always do, Liara nodded. Maybe. But now I not run. He turned to her, curious. I send message, she said softly, holding up the pendant that once carried all the dark secrets of her people's trade network. I send a counsel. Truth goes to every world. No more brides, no more slaves. Ethan's brow lifted. You managed to send it? Liara smiled faintly. Last night. Before fight. He stared at her in surprise. You did it, she nodded. Now Galaxy knows. A silence fell between them, one filled with both pride and sadness. For Liara, it meant she could never return home. For Ethan, it meant he could never go back to the quiet life he once had. Jamie limped toward them, balancing himself against the wall. What now? He asked. Ethan knelt in front of him. Now we rebuild, Jamie grinned. With her? Ethan looked at Liara. If she'll stay. Liara tilted her head, the faintest trace of a smile touching her lips. You still ask? Ethan chuckled. Guess I had to be sure. She took a deep breath and looked at the sunrise. When they shipped me, she said quietly, they said I was property. They said my name was gone. But when you opened that pod, you gave it back. She turned to him, eyes glowing like liquid silver. Now I stay. Because this... She glanced at Jamie. This is home. Ethan felt something in his chest loosen. Then welcome home, Liara of Threx. Jamie laughed, throwing his arms around both of them. Does that mean you're my space mom now? Liara blinked, then laughed, a sound pure and strange like music. If you wish, little human. The three of them stood there, wrapped in light. For a long time, none of them spoke. Above them, the first carrier ships appeared in the distance, official patrols this time, not hunters. They came not for capture, but for help. Liara's transmission had spread faster than anyone expected. The galaxy was talking. The truth had burned brighter than lies. Ethan put his arm around her shoulders. Think they'll call you a hero now? She smiled softly. No, just free, he nodded. Good enough for me. As the sun climbed higher, Jamie took another small step forward, his first into a world reborn. Liara stood on one side, Ethan on the other. Three souls who had found each other by accident, yet somehow fit together perfectly. A wrong delivery, a broken home, and a beginning no one had planned, but everyone had needed. Far above them, the sky shimmered as a new dawn rose over Viron 9, and for the first time, the future didn't look so far away.